Hey guys, welcome back. And today we're going to do part 2 of the practice test. Alright, so let's continue. So question number 11, I believe, is where we left off. And we did the first 10 in the previous video. Alright, so let's read this one. So in the equations above, B and C represent the price per pound in dollars of beef and chicken. So B for beef and C for chicken, respectively. X weeks after July 1st during the last summer. What was the price per pound of beef when it is equal to the price per pound of chicken? So the only way we can solve this problem is we would have to put them equal to each other, obviously. Okay? So we do 2.35 plus 0.25. So I'm just going to write 1/4 x just for safekeeping. And then equals 1.75 plus 0.4x. Okay, and now we put them equal to each other because it says when they're equal. And now we just need to solve for x. That's basically it. So we'd have to first do 2.35 minus 1.75. So I'm going to do that first. And when I do that, I get 0.6. And then I do the same thing, except I would have to subtract this now from both sides. 1/4 x, so that means 0.25 minus 0.4, which is basically 0.15x. Okay, and now I'm going to get that x equals 4. But that's when it's basically saying how many x weeks after July. So when it's 4 weeks, but we're not done. Now we need to plug in that x value to figure out the prices when the prices are equal. So we'd have to do that. So I'll plug it into this one because 0.25 times 4 is just 1. So that makes it easy. So that's 1 plus 2.35, which is 3.35. And obviously if this is 3.35, then this must be 3.35. So therefore it would be D, $3.35. Alright, and like we talked about, the best way to solve all these problems is to substitute, elimination, that sort. Alright, next one. A line in the xy plane passes through the origin, so that means 0, 0. So I'd always label things when you don't know. And a slope of 1/7. So the m is equal to 1/7. Which of the following points lies on the slope? So remember the formula y equals mx plus b. Right? That's pretty straightforward. Now we know that y equals m 1/7 x. And why we know that is because b, it says it passes through the origin. If it passes through the origin, it must be something like this, right? And obviously that doesn't have a y-intercept. The y-intercept here in this situation would be 0, so we can just get rid of that. Now we just plug in values. Like I said, best way is to plug in and see which one works. So if I plug in 0 here, I should get 0, but that doesn't work. If I plug in 1 here, I should get 1/7, so that doesn't work. If I plug in 7, I should get 7. I get 1 and not 7 for the y value, so that cancels. So the only thing we're left off with this. So let's check. So 1/7 times 14 equals 2, and y equals 2, so D would be our right answer. Alright, let's keep going. Number 13. So when if x is greater than 3, so they're giving us a disclaimer that x is greater than 3, which of the following is equivalent to this equation? So the best way is to simplify. That is the best way you should do all these problems, is to simplify. So I would first make these have a common denominator. That is always the best bet. So I'll have x plus 2, x plus 3 as my denominator, my common denominator. Okay, so that is my common denominator. And now I'm going to write it as a fraction. So if x plus 2, x plus 3 is our denominator, because you remember you can get your denominator by just multiplying these two values, always. Right? And when I do that, remember you would get x plus 3 on the first equation. Right? And then you have plus, and then you're going to have the same thing. X plus 2, x plus 3, same denominator. And then for this one, you would have x plus 2 on the top. Because remember, if I cancel them out, right, I'd have, if I cancel this and this out, I would have 1 over x, x plus 2 here. And then if I cancel this and this out, then I have 1 over x plus 3. Now that is it. Now let's combine. That's the easiest way. So x plus x is 2x, that's pretty straightforward, plus 3 plus 2, which is 5, and then we have the denominator of x plus 2 and x plus 3. So right off the bat, we know that we can flip this because it's 1 divided by this part right here. And we do that by keep, change, flip. So that means the denominator will be on the top now, and the numerator will be on the bottom. So it switches. So before that, we can cross off C and D off the bat. And then obviously this has to be in the denominator, so A is gone. So we are left with B as our answer. And why this is on the top is basically they just distributed it right here. So when you basically write this out, it's x squared plus 2x plus 5. Sorry, my bad. That's not what I meant to write. X squared plus 5x plus 6, sorry, over 2x plus 5. And that's B. Because we do keep, change, flip with division. Alright. Alright, let's keep going. Alright. Number 14. 14 is actually pretty easy. So we have 3x minus y equals 12. What is the value of this? So the best way to solve this problem is to rewrite it so it has the same base. So here we can write 2 to the power of 3x because 2 to the power of 3 is 2 times 2 times 2, which is basically 8. Then we have 2 to the power of y. And then based on our rules for bases, if they're the same base, you can subtract the powers. So it just equal to 2 3x minus y. But our question's saying, what is the value of this? Now we know here 3x minus y equals 12, so we can substitute. So it'd be 2 to the power of 12. So therefore our answer would be A. Alright, let's go to number 15. So here we're given an equation where we're not sure what the A and B values are, but it equals this, and we know that when you add A and B, it should equal 8. So what are the two possible values of C? So best way is just find ways what values would work, basically, and remember, when you have this type of equation, remember A times B should give you 15, right? So that means AB should give you 15, but also A plus B should give you 8. So you have to find values that work, and I think the best values in this situation would be 3 and 5. Because 3 plus 5 is 8, and 3 times 5 is 15. So I'm going to do 3x. Let's pretend A is 3, and we'll pretend that B is 5. Okay, now let's figure out what our C values can be. So we have 3 times 5, which is 15. Then we have 3 times 7, which is 21x plus 10x. Right? And then we have plus 14. And then we have here 15x squared. Now here we know that 21 plus 10 is 31. So, right? So we know that for sure the only value that would work is D. Right, because when you add these two, we get 31x, and 31 is our C value here. But there's also another possible 31, another way to get the same value, and that would be switching them. So instead of 5 here and 3 here, it'd be 5 here and 3 here. And then remember, 5 times 7 is 35, and 35 plus 6 would be 41. So there we go. So as long as you get one value, it's easy to get the other value because you're just switching your coefficients. So you're just switching the values for A and B instead to get a different value for C. Alright, so we went through all the multiple choice. So now we're going to go into what we call open problems, which basically means you're not given a multiple choice. You have to just solve for the value and put it in, mark it in. So we're just solving for values. So let's start with this one. If t is greater than 0 and t squared minus 4 equals 0, what is the value of t? So let's solve for t. So we have t squared equals 4 because I'm adding 4 to both sides here first. And then I can square root both sides. And I get t equals plus minus 2. But remember, it says that t is greater than 0, so therefore t would have to equal 2. So our answer is t equals 2. Alright, let's go to the next one. So number 17. So here we have a summer camp counselor wants to find x in feet across a lake as represented in the sketch above. The lengths represented by AB, EB, BD, and CD are in the sketch were determined to be. So we're going to label them. So we know AB is 1800, so we can write 1800 right here. And then we know EB is 1400. And then we know that BD is 700. And then we know that BCD is 800 respectively. Now segments A, C, and D intersect each other at B. So AB, AEB, and CDB have the same measure. So I'm basically saying this has the same measure as this. And then obviously this would have the same measure. And so what is the value of x? So in triangles, if we know this is congruent and we know these are congruent, we can also say this third angle is also congruent. So we know these triangles are similar. So we can use that idea to help us figure out the lengths. So first I'm going to draw it based on how the angle is. So for example, we know we're going to line it up in the way, so we know E and D are similar. So I'm going to now write this in a way where I'm going to draw it like this, and I'm going to put D over here, okay? That means C would have to go here, and B would have to go right here. Now I'm going to write the measurements, the same thing. So we know 700 goes right here, okay, and 800 goes right here. So now what do you notice? Going from here to here, we know you're multiplying by 2, okay? If I'm multiplying by 2, that means this and this are the same value, so that means 800 times 2 is 1600, right? So therefore, x would have to equal 1600, which means CB, because if you're multiplying by 2, this would have to be 900. So therefore, x is 1600, so our answer would be 1600 for x feet. All right. So remember, it's basically just on the idea of congruency of triangles and understanding that they're similar triangles, so their proportionality would be the same. All right. So now let's go to the next question, which is number 18, which is right up here. Okay, so according to the system of equations above, what is the value of x? So system of equations, so I think the best way to do is you have an x here and x here. So the best way to do is rather than solving for x, we should get rid of the y's because of that we want x's. So what we could do is multiply by 2 here. So we'd have 2x plus 2y equals negative 18. And then we have x plus 2y equals negative 25. And now we can solve by subtracting, because if I want to get rid of this part, I would have to subtract. So I'd be left with x equals, and then negative 18 plus 25 gives us 7. So x would have to equal 7. Because this minus this equals 7. So x equals 7. Alright, let's keep going. Alright, in a right triangle, one angle measures x theta, where sine x theta equals 4 over 5. What is cosine 90 minus that value? So we're going to draw the triangle out. So you're going to say this is angle x, whatever it is, and sine. So sine, remember, is opposite over hypotenuse, because SOHCAHTOA. So I'm going to write that down, the abbreviation, SOHCAHTOA. Basically how SOHCAHTOA works is sine is opposite over hypotenuse, cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, and tangent is opposite over adjacent. So sine means opposite, which is 4, so the top value would be the opposite, and then this would be the hypotenuse, so that would be 5. And adjacent is basically whatever is adjacent to the x. So we have 4 over 5. And remember, this is a 3, 4, 5 triangle actually, so it's kind of easy. So if this is, let's say this was 90 degrees, and we called this 30, then this would have to be 60, because it says 30, 60, 90 triangle, which makes this 3. So basically that would mean that what is cosine of 90, let's say if this was 30 degrees, then it would be cosine of 60 degrees. So we'd have to look at 60 degrees, and it's the same thing. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So adjacent is whatever value is close to it. So right here attaching is 4, so it'd be 4 over 5. Or 4 over 5, 4/5. or 0.8. Either one would work. So remember, when you have this type of situation where it's like 90 minus the x value, since cosine and sine are kind of inverse of each other, it would have, most likely the values would equal the same. But to check, you should always draw the triangle. That is the best way to check. Always draw the triangle. Right? And the last question is 20. If a equals 5 root 2 and 2a equals square root 2x, what is the value of x? So that's pretty easy. Plug it in. So we have 2 equals 5 root 2, and that equals square root 2x. Then we have 10, because I can multiply 2 times 5, which is 10, equals square root 2x. Now if I'm squaring these on both sides, I get 2x equals, well, we have 100 times 100, right? Which is, we have 10 times 10, sorry, 10 times 10, because it's 10 squared, which is 100. And then when you square this, it's just 2. So it'd be 200, because it'd be 2 times 100, which is 200. And then we can divide by 2 on both sides, and then we'll get our value of x. So x would equal 100. Alright, so that is it. Alright, if you have any questions, please put them down below. And thank you so much for watching. I hope you like this, and I will continue going on with SAT videos. And once again, thank you so much.